I never thought my peaceful Saturday morning in Boulder, Colorado would end with me becoming the prime suspect in my own theft case. But that's exactly what happened when Patricia Whitmore, our HOA president, decided my custom-built firewood cart looked better in her garage than mine. It started like any other October weekend. I just finished stacking 2 cords of aspen and pine in my backyard shed, preparing for the brutal winter months ahead. The cart I'd built last spring sat empty near my garage door, a beautiful piece of work if I do say so myself. I'm Connor Murphy, and I've lived in the Meadowbrook Heights subdivision for 3 years now. I work as a software engineer from home, which means I have plenty of time to notice the comings and goings of my neighbors, especially the ones who make it their business to notice mine. Patricia had been HOA president for 6 years, and in that time, she'd transformed our once relaxed neighborhood into something resembling a minimum security prison. Every blade of grass needed to be exactly 2.5 inches tall. Every mailbox had to match the approved color scheme. Even the type of garden gnomes you could display had specifications. I'd managed to stay off her radar mostly, keeping my head down and following the increasingly ridiculous rules. That Saturday morning, I walked outside with my coffee to admire my handiwork. The woodpile looked good, neatly stacked and ready for winter. But something was wrong. The cart was gone. Not moved, not tipped over, but completely vanished. This wasn't some lightweight wheelbarrow from Home Depot. This was a heavy-duty cart I'd welded together from steel tubing, with pneumatic wheels I'd salvaged from an old lawn tractor. The thing weighed close to 80 pounds empty and could haul half a cord of wood at a time. Nobody just accidentally takes something like that. I walked around my property twice, thinking maybe I'd moved it and forgotten. But no, I distinctly remembered leaving it by the garage the night before. I'd even thought about wheeling it into the garage but decided against it since I'd be using it again in the morning. That decision was coming back to haunt me now. My neighbor to the left, Greg Harrison, was out getting his newspaper. Greg was retired military, kept to himself mostly, but we'd had enough conversations over the fence to be friendly. I walked over to him. "Hey Greg, you didn't happen to see anyone around my place last night or early this morning, did you? My firewood cart is missing." Greg scratched his head, thinking. "Can't say I did, Connor, but I did hear Patricia driving around pretty late last night. Must have been close to 11. Thought it was weird since she's usually in bed by 9. That was interesting. Patricia lived 4 houses down from me, in the biggest house on the block. She'd made it clear from day one that she considered herself the guardian of property values in Meadowbrook Heights. She'd written me up twice, once for leaving my trash cans visible from the street for more than 12 hours after pickup, and once for having a ladder leaning against my house for 3 days while I cleaned the gutters. "Thanks, Greg. I'll figure it out." I went back inside and started calling my other neighbors. Most hadn't seen anything, but Jennifer Martinez across the street mentioned she'd seen Patricia's white Escalade driving slowly through the neighborhood around 10:30 the previous night, which she'd also found unusual. Jennifer said Patricia had even stopped in front of my house for a minute before driving on. I decided to take a walk through the neighborhood. Maybe someone had borrowed it, though that would be incredibly rude without asking. As I walked past the various cookie-cutter homes with their perfectly maintained lawns, I thought about how much I'd enjoyed this neighborhood before Patricia had gone full dictator with the HOA rules. When I reached Patricia's house, I stopped. Her garage door was partially open, maybe a foot off the ground, probably a malfunction with the automatic opener. And there, visible in the shadows of her garage, I could see what looked like the distinctive red metal framework of my cart. The red paint was custom, A specific shade I'd mixed myself to match my toolbox. I'd know that cart anywhere. My heart started pounding. Was Patricia really that brazen? Would the HOA president actually steal from a resident? I pulled out my phone and took several photos of what I could see through the gap. The angle wasn't great, but you could definitely see something red and cart-shaped in there. I walked up to her front door and rang the bell. I could hear movement inside, then silence. I rang again. Finally, after the third ring, Patricia opened the door. She was wearing a velour tracksuit, her hair pulled back in a tight bun that seemed to pull her whole face taut with disapproval. She was probably in her mid-50s, with the kind of rigid posture that suggested she'd never had a relaxed moment in her life. "Connor," she said, not even pretending to be friendly. "It's Saturday morning. What could possibly be so important? My firewood cart is missing," I said directly. "I built it myself, red metal frame, pneumatic wheels. Someone took it from my driveway last night." Her expression didn't change. "And you're telling me this because I'm letting my neighbors know to keep an eye out. It's distinctive, hard to miss. If you see anything, I'd appreciate a call." "I haven't seen any cart," she said quickly, too quickly. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have things to do." She started to close the door, but I spoke up again. "Patricia, your garage door is partially open. Security risk. You might want to check that." Her eyes narrowed. "My garage is none of your business. And speaking of business, I've been meaning to talk to you about your woodpile. The HOA bylaws clearly state that firewood must be stored in an approved container or shed, not visible from the street. My woodpile is behind my house, not visible from anywhere but my own backyard. And the bylaws don't say anything about firewood. I read them cover to cover when I moved in." "The bylaws were amended at the last meeting," she said smugly, "which you didn't attend. The new rules went into effect immediately. You have 72 hours to comply or face a fine of $100 per day." "What meeting? I never got notice of a meeting." "It was posted on the community board at the entrance to the subdivision. Residents are responsible for staying informed." This was classic Patricia. She'd schedule meetings at odd times, post minimal notice, and push through whatever rules she wanted. I'd heard stories from other neighbors about similar tactics, but I'd never been hit with it directly. "Fine," I said, trying to keep my cool. "I'll look into it. But about my cart, if you happen to see anything." "I'll be sure to let you know," she said, and shut the door in my face. I walked back to my house, my mind racing. I was 90% sure my cart was in her garage, but what could I do about it? I couldn't exactly break in to retrieve it. And calling the police over a cart seemed extreme, especially without proof. The photos I took were suggestive but not conclusive. Back home, I made a decision. I'd file a police report. At the very least, it would create an official record of the theft. If my cart turned up later, or if Patricia tried to claim it as her own, I'd have documentation. I called the Boulder Police Department's non-emergency line and explained the situation. They said an officer would come by to take a report. Officer Ryan Chen showed up about an hour later. He was young, probably late 20s, and took notes as I described the cart and the circumstances of its disappearance. "You said you have photos of what might be your cart in a neighbor's garage," he asked. I showed him the pictures on my phone. He zoomed in, studying them. "Hard to say for certain, but that does look like it could be your cart. Did you build this yourself?" "Yeah, welded it together in my garage. Used steel tubing and wheels from an old lawn tractor. It's got some distinctive features, custom paint job. My initials welded on the side in small letters." "Your initials would help identify it as yours," Officer Chen said. "Here's the situation. I can't search her garage without probable cause or permission, but what I can do is go ask her some questions. Sometimes that's enough to resolve these situations. People get nervous when police show up. I'd appreciate that, I said. I don't want trouble. I just want my cart back. Officer Chen and I walked down to Patricia's house together. Her garage door was now fully closed. Officer Chen rang the doorbell, and Patricia answered quickly, probably thinking it was another neighbor she could intimidate. When she saw the police uniform, her expression shifted to surprise, then calculation. "Officer," she said smoothly, "how can I help you?" "Madam, I'm Officer Chen with Boulder PD. I'm here about a report of a stolen firewood cart. The owner has reason to believe it might be in your garage. Would you be willing to open your garage door so we can clear this up?" "Absolutely not," Patricia said immediately. "I know my rights." "You need a warrant to search my property." "Madam, I'm not asking to search. I'm simply asking if you'd voluntarily open your garage door. If you have nothing to hide, it would resolve this very quickly." "I'm the president of the Meadowbrook Heights HOA," Patricia said, drawing herself up to her full height. "I have been a respected member of this community for over a decade. The implication that I would steal from a neighbor is not only offensive but actionable. I could sue for defamation." Officer Chen remained calm. "No one is accusing you of anything, madam. We're simply investigating a theft report. Mr. Murphy here has photos suggesting his cart might be in your garage. It's possible someone else put it there, or there's been a misunderstanding." "There is no cart in my garage," Patricia said firmly, "and I resent the implication. Officer, I think you should leave now. And Connor, you'll be hearing from the HOA board about this harassment." Officer Chen handed her his card. "If you change your mind or remember seeing anything, please give me a call. Mr. Murphy, let's go." As we walked back to my house, Officer Chen sighed. "She's not going to make this easy, but here's what I'll tell you. The fact that she refused to just open the garage is suspicious. Most innocent people would just show us to prove they have nothing to hide. I'm going to include that in my report. Also, those photos you took might be enough for probable cause if we can enhance them. Mind if I send them to our tech guys?" "Not at all. Do whatever you need to do. In the meantime, keep your eyes open. If she moves the cart or if you see anything else suspicious, document it. Time-stamped photos, videos, whatever you can get. And don't confront her yourself. Let us handle it." After Officer Chen left, I felt frustrated but slightly vindicated. At least the police were taking it seriously. I spent the rest of the day setting up some security cameras I'd had in a box in my basement. I'd bought them months ago but never got around to installing them. Now seemed like the perfect time. I mounted one facing my driveway and garage, one facing the street, and one covering my backyard. All of them connected to my phone with cloud backup and motion detection. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about the situation. It seemed so absurd. Why would Patricia steal my cart? She had money. She could buy 10 carts if she wanted, unless this wasn't about the cart at all. Maybe this was about control, about showing me that she could do whatever she wanted. Or maybe she needed it for something and figured I wouldn't notice or wouldn't make a fuss. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. Motion detection on the front camera. I opened the app and saw Patricia's white Escalade driving slowly past my house. She slowed almost to a stop in front of my driveway, then drove on. I saved the video clip. She circled back 10 minutes later, and this time she stopped completely, sitting in front of my house for nearly 5 minutes before driving away. This was getting weird. I texted Officer Chen the video clips, explaining what had just happened. He responded a few minutes later. "Document everything. This could constitute harassment. I'll add it to the report." Sunday morning brought more drama. I found a notice taped to my front door. It was from the HOA, signed by Patricia, stating that I had violated multiple community bylaws and was being assessed fines totaling $500. The alleged violations included the firewood visibility issue she'd mentioned, unauthorized security cameras facing the street, which apparently required HOA board approval, and disturbing the peace by bringing law enforcement into the neighborhood for frivolous complaints. I photographed the notice and called my lawyer. Well, not my lawyer exactly. My friend Derek from college had gone to law school and now practiced real estate law in Denver. I'd helped him move last year, so he owed me one. "Derek, I need some advice about HOA stuff," I said when he answered. "Connor, long time. What's going on?" I explained the whole situation. The stolen cart, Patricia's refusal to cooperate, the police visit, and now the retaliatory fines. Derek listened without interrupting, then whistled low. "Okay, so you've got a few things happening here. First, the fines. You said you never received notice of the meeting where these new bylaws were supposedly approved, right?" She claims it was posted on the community board, but I drive past that board every day. There was nothing there about a meeting. Colorado has specific requirements for HOA meetings and notice procedures. Generally, they have to provide written notice to all homeowners, not just post something on a board. Even if these new bylaws were legitimately approved, which I doubt, charging you $100 a day is excessive and probably unenforceable. Don't pay these fines. I'll draft a response for you. What about the cart situation? That's trickier. It's theft, plain and simple, if she has it. But you need proof. The police are doing the right thing by investigating. In the meantime, keep documenting everything. Every interaction with her, every HOA notice, every time she drives by your house. You might be building a harassment case which could be useful. Thanks, Derek. I appreciate it. No problem. Send me all the documentation you have. Photos, videos, notices, everything. I'll put together a response to the HOA and we'll see where this goes. Oh, and Connor, be careful. HOA presidents can be vindictive, especially ones who are used to getting their way. Monday morning, I was working from home when my doorbell rang. It was Officer Chen again, this time with a woman in plain clothes who introduced herself as Detective Lisa Morrison. "Mr. Murphy," Detective Morrison said, "Officer Chen brought your case to my attention. Can we come in and talk?" We sat in my living room and Detective Morrison pulled out a tablet. "I've reviewed the photos you took, and our tech team enhanced them. We can definitely see a red metal cart in Mrs. Whitmore's garage. The serial number on the tire is partially visible, and it matches the brand and model you said you used. That's not conclusive proof it's your cart, but combined with her refusal to cooperate and the timing of the theft, we have enough for a search warrant." My heart jumped. "You're going to search her garage?" "We submitted the warrant request this morning. Should have approval by this afternoon. But there's something else. When we ran Mrs. Whitmore's name through our database, something interesting came up. About 8 years ago, before she moved to Boulder, she was arrested in Phoenix, Arizona for theft and possession of stolen property. The charges were eventually dropped due to insufficient evidence, but her fingerprints are in the system. Wait, seriously? The HOA president has an arrest record." "Had an arrest, not a conviction," Detective Morrison clarified. "But it establishes a pattern of behavior. Here's what I'm thinking. If we execute the warrant and find your cart, I want to dust it for fingerprints. If we find her prints on it, particularly in places that wouldn't make sense unless she was moving or handling it, that's strong evidence of theft." "Do whatever you need to do," I said. "I just want my cart back." "One more thing," Detective Morrison said. "Has she been by your house or contacted you since the police visit?" I showed her the video of Patricia driving by my house repeatedly on Saturday night. She also left me this. I handed her the HOA notice with the fines. Detective Morrison and Officer Chen exchanged a look. "This could be witness intimidation," Detective Morrison said. "Attempting to use her HOA position to retaliate against you for reporting a crime. That's a separate offense. Mr. Murphy, I want you to know we're taking this seriously. This isn't just about a cart anymore." They left and I tried to focus on work, but it was impossible. I kept checking my phone, waiting for updates. Around 3 in the afternoon, Detective Morrison texted me. "Warrant approved. Executing at 5 p.m. We'll update you after." At exactly 5 o'clock, I watched from my window as 2 police cruisers and an unmarked car pulled up in front of Patricia's house. Detective Morrison, Officer Chen, and 2 other officers approached her door. Even from my house, 4 doors down, I could hear Patricia's raised voice when she answered. The officers presented the warrant, and Patricia had no choice but to let them in. About 20 minutes later, Officer Chen emerged from the garage pushing my cart. Even from a distance, I could see the red metal frame, the pneumatic wheels, everything. They loaded it into a police van, presumably to dust for fingerprints at the station. Detective Morrison stood on Patricia's front lawn, clearly explaining something to Patricia, who stood with her arms crossed, her face bright red. My phone rang. It was Detective Morrison. "Mr. Murphy, we found your cart. We'll need to process it for evidence, but assuming the prints match, you'll get it back in a few days. Can you come down to the station tomorrow morning to formally identify it and provide a statement?" "Absolutely. Thank you so much." "Don't thank me yet. The real work is just beginning. We need to build a solid case. Bring any receipts or documentation you have about building the cart, photos from when you were constructing it, anything that proves it's yours." That evening, I couldn't help but feel a mix of satisfaction and anxiety. Satisfaction that I'd been right, that my cart had been exactly where I thought it was. Anxiety about what would happen next. Patricia wasn't the type to accept defeat gracefully. Sure enough, around 9 p.m., my doorbell rang insistently. I checked the security camera first. Patricia was standing on my porch, looking furious. I debated not answering, but I wanted this on camera. I opened the door but left the screen door closed between us. "Patricia, you son of a bitch," she spat. "Do you have any idea what you've done? The police searched my home like I'm some kind of criminal. How dare you? That cart was abandoned property. It was sitting in your driveway for weeks. I thought you didn't want it anymore." "Abandoned. I used it yesterday morning. And it's been in my driveway for months, sure, because that's where I keep it. That doesn't make it abandoned. You're going to regret this," she said, her voice shaking with rage. "I will make your life in this neighborhood a living hell. The HOA will fine you into bankruptcy. Every day there will be a new violation, a new assessment. I'll have you thrown out of Meadowbrook Heights." "Are you threatening me?" I asked calmly. "Because my security camera is recording this conversation." She looked up, seeing the camera for the first time. Her expression shifted to something uglier. "You think you're so smart. You haven't won anything. That cart will sit in the evidence locker forever while lawyers fight over it. And in the meantime, I'm still the HOA president. I still have power in this neighborhood. You should have just let it go." "Let you steal from me?" "Yeah, that's not how I operate. And for the record, the police found the cart exactly where I said it was. You're the one who stole from a neighbor, not me." "They can't prove anything," she said. "I'll say someone else put it there. Maybe you broke into my garage and planted it to frame me." "Patricia, you should probably stop talking and get a lawyer. Seriously. You're just making things worse for yourself." She turned and stormed off my porch, getting into her Escalade and peeling out down the street. I immediately saved the video clip and sent it to Detective Morrison with a note. She came to my house, threatened to use HOA to retaliate. Please see attached video. Detective Morrison called me 5 minutes later. Mr. Murphy, I need you to file a formal harassment complaint. Come to the station first thing tomorrow. With this video, we may have enough to charge her with witness intimidation. And she basically admitted to taking the cart, even if she tried to justify it. Tuesday morning, I went to the police station with a folder full of documentation. I had photos from when I built the cart, showing it in various stages of construction. I had receipts for the steel tubing, the wheels, the paint. I had my welding equipment purchase history. I'd even found a photo I'd posted on social media 6 months ago with the finished cart, clearly showing my initials welded onto the side frame. Detective Morrison reviewed everything carefully. This is perfect. There's no question this cart is yours. Now let me show you something. She pulled up photos on her computer. We processed the cart for fingerprints last night. We found your prints, which makes sense since you built and used it. But we also found multiple prints belonging to Patricia Whitmore. They're on the handle, on the frame, in places consistent with someone pushing or maneuvering the cart. We even found her prints on the inside of the frame, near where you welded your initials. She touched my initials. Looks like it. Maybe she was trying to figure out if she could remove them. Here's the thing. Those prints match the ones we have in the system from her arrest in Arizona. It's definitely her, and there's no innocent explanation for why her fingerprints would be all over your cart. So, what happens now? We're charging her with theft and criminal mischief. Given the value of the cart and the parts, plus your labor, we're estimating it around $1,200, which makes it a Class 2 misdemeanor. She'll also be charged with witness intimidation for that stunt she pulled last night at your house. The district attorney's office is reviewing the case today. She should be arrested by end of business. Arrested? Like actually arrested? Yes. She'll be processed, booked, fingerprinted again, photographed, the whole thing. She'll probably make bail immediately, but she'll have to appear in court. And Mr. Murphy, given the HOA situation, you might want to contact a civil attorney. You could have grounds for a lawsuit against her personally and possibly the HOA for abuse of power. I left the police station feeling like I'd entered some alternate reality. All I'd wanted was my firewood cart back. Now the HOA president was being arrested for stealing it. This was going to cause major waves in the neighborhood. By late afternoon, word had spread. My phone started blowing up with texts from neighbors. Apparently, police had shown up at Patricia's house around 4 p.m. and arrested her. She'd been led out in handcuffs, loaded into a police car, and driven away. The neighborhood gossip chain was working overtime. Greg from next door came over around 6. Connor, man, is it true? Patricia stole your cart. Looks that way. Police found it in her garage. Her fingerprints were all over it. They arrested her this afternoon. Holy hell, you know, this explains something. Last month, my snow blower disappeared. I thought maybe I'd forgotten to lock my garage and someone just walked off with it. But now I'm wondering. Patricia borrowed my garage door opener once, said she wanted to check if hers was the same model. What if she made a copy? You should talk to Detective Morrison, I said, giving him her card. If there's a pattern of theft, they'd want to know. Over the next few days, more stories emerged. Jennifer across the street was missing some expensive gardening tools. The Hendersons 2 streets over had lost a generator. Another neighbor couldn't find their pressure washer. All of these items had disappeared over the past 6 months, all from people who lived in the neighborhood, and all were relatively expensive but small enough to hide in a garage. Detective Morrison called a neighborhood meeting at the community center. About 40 residents showed up. way more than had ever attended an HOA meeting. The detective explained that they were investigating a series of thefts and asked anyone who'd had items disappear to file a report. By the end of the meeting, 12 residents had reported missing items. Detective Morrison got a second warrant for a more thorough search of Patricia's property. When they executed it, they found my neighbor's snow blower in her basement, the generator in her storage shed, the pressure washer in a back corner of her garage, and various other items stashed throughout her property. It was like she'd been running her own personal hardware store with stolen merchandise. The charges against Patricia grew. Multiple counts of theft, possession of stolen property, and witness intimidation from her visit to my house. She posted bail but was ordered to stay away from me and several other neighbors. An emergency HOA meeting was called to remove her as president. I actually attended this one. The vote was unanimous. Patricia was out and the vice president, a reasonable guy named Tom Webster, took over. Tom's first act was to rescind all the ridiculous fines Patricia had issued in the past month, including mine. His second act was to propose a full review of all the bylaw changes Patricia had pushed through during her tenure. It turned out she'd been using her position to tighten control gradually, adding restrictions and requirements that served no purpose except to give her power over people. 3 weeks after the initial theft, my cart was returned to me. It had some fingerprint dust on it still, but otherwise it was fine. I cleaned it up and parked it in my garage this time, not because I was afraid it would be stolen again, but because winter was coming and I wanted to take better care of my stuff. Patricia's preliminary hearing was scheduled for mid-November. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Sarah Chen, had contacted me about being a witness. She explained that given the physical evidence, particularly the fingerprints and the pattern of theft from multiple victims, they had a strong case. Patricia's attorney had reached out about a plea deal, but the prosecutor wasn't interested in going easy on her. People in positions of trust who abuse that trust need to be held accountable, Sarah explained when we met to prepare my testimony. Mrs. Whitmore was the HOA president. People trusted her. She had access to the neighborhood, knew people's schedules, knew when they'd be home or away. She used all that information to steal from the very people she was supposed to serve. That's betrayal on multiple levels. The hearing itself was anticlimactic. I sat in the courtroom along with several other neighbors who'd been victims. Patricia appeared with her lawyer, an expensive-looking guy in a 3-piece suit who probably cost more per hour than my cart was worth. The prosecutor presented the evidence. The fingerprints, the stolen items recovered from Patricia's property, the timeline of thefts, my security footage, everything. Patricia's lawyer tried to argue that his client had a shopping addiction and psychological problems that compelled her to take things. He painted her as a victim of mental illness rather than a criminal, but the prosecutor shut that down quickly. Your Honor, Mrs. Whitmore didn't steal items randomly. She targeted specific neighbors, often those she'd had conflicts with through the HOA. She stole from Mr. Murphy shortly after he questioned her about some HOA rules. She stole from Mr. Harrison after he complained about a fine she'd issued. This wasn't compulsive behavior. This was calculated retaliation. And when confronted, she threatened witnesses and attempted to use her HOA position to intimidate victims. These are not the actions of someone suffering from a shopping addiction. These are the actions of someone who believed she was above the rules. The judge agreed. Patricia was bound over for trial and bail was increased. Her lawyer made one more attempt at a plea deal, and this time the prosecutor was willing to negotiate, but only if Patricia agreed to certain terms. Full restitution to all victims, a guilty plea to all theft charges and the witness intimidation charge, resignation from the HOA board in writing, and a recommendation for jail time. Patricia's lawyer took the deal. She pleaded guilty in December to 11 counts of theft, 1 count of criminal mischief, and 1 count of witness intimidation. The sentencing hearing was scheduled for January. Meanwhile, life in Meadowbrook Heights was changing. With Tom Webster as president, the HOA became what it was supposed to be: a group of neighbors working together to maintain property values and common areas without being tyrants about it. The ridiculous fines stopped. The constant violations notices stopped. People could breathe again. Tom even approached me personally to apologize. "A lot of us knew Patricia was out of control," he admitted, "but nobody wanted to stand up to her because she'd make your life miserable. You did what needed to be done, even though it cost you a lot of hassle. The neighborhood owes you." "I just wanted my cart back," I said honestly. "All the rest of this, it just spiraled." "Well, we're grateful anyway. And speaking of the HOA, we'd like you to join the board. We need people who aren't afraid to do the right thing, even when it's difficult." I agreed, figuring it was better to be part of the solution than to complain from the sidelines. My first board meeting was surprisingly pleasant. We discussed actual issues like snow removal schedules and getting the community center's heating system repaired. No talk of grass height enforcement or approved garden gnome lists. The sentencing hearing in January was packed. All 11 victims showed up, and several of us gave impact statements. I talked about how the theft had made me feel violated, how my home was supposed to be my safe space, and how Patricia had betrayed the trust of everyone in the neighborhood. Other victims talked about the financial impact, the emotional stress, and the breach of trust. The judge listened to everything, reviewed the pre-sentencing report, and then delivered his ruling. "Mrs. Whitmore, you held a position of trust and authority in your community. Rather than using that position to serve your neighbors, you exploited it for personal gain. You stole from the very people who trusted you. When confronted, you threatened witnesses and attempted to abuse your authority further. This court cannot and will not tolerate such behavior." He sentenced her to 18 months in county jail, with credit for time served. After completing her sentence, she'd serve 3 years of probation. She was also ordered to pay full restitution to all victims, totaling nearly $15,000, and to reimburse the HOA for legal expenses incurred in removing her from the board. Patricia's face went pale when the sentence was read. Her lawyer started to object, but she put a hand on his arm, stopping him. For the first time through this whole ordeal, she looked like she understood the gravity of what she'd done. As the bailiff led her away, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Satisfaction that justice had been served, sure, but also sadness that it had come to this. If Patricia had just been a decent person, a fair HOA president, none of this would have happened. She'd had a good life in a nice neighborhood, and she'd thrown it all away because she couldn't resist the urge to control and punish people. The civil lawsuit came later. Several neighbors, including me, filed a joint lawsuit against Patricia for damages beyond the value of the stolen items. We argued emotional distress, loss of use of property, and the time and expense involved in recovering our belongings. Derek handled the case for us, and Patricia's homeowner's insurance ended up settling for $60,000, split among all the plaintiffs. My share was about $5,000, which more than covered the cost of the cart and all the hassle. Patricia's house went on the market in February. She couldn't afford the mortgage payments while in jail, and her husband, who I'd barely ever seen during all of this, filed for divorce. The house sold in March to a young couple with twin toddlers who seemed nice enough. They introduced themselves to all the neighbors and seemed bemused when we told them the story of the previous owner. By spring, life in Meadowbrook Heights had fully returned to normal. Actually, better than normal. The HOA was functioning properly, neighbors were friendlier with each other, and there was a sense of community that had been missing when everyone was afraid of getting written up for minor infractions. I still used my firewood cart regularly. Every time I wheeled it out to stack wood or haul supplies, I remembered the chaos it had caused. That cart had been at the center of a neighborhood drama that resulted in an arrest, a trial, a sentence, a divorce, and a complete restructuring of our HOA. All because one woman thought she could take whatever she wanted. The best part came in late April. Detective Morrison called me with an update. "Thought you'd want to know," she said. Patricia Whitmore was denied early release. She applied after serving 6 months, claiming good behavior. But the parole board reviewed her case and decided she needed to serve her full sentence. Apparently, she was still claiming in her application that she was the victim, that the neighborhood had ganged up on her unfairly. "So she still doesn't get it," I said. "Some people never do." But the system worked. She was held accountable. That's what matters. Looking back, the whole situation taught me important lessons. First, document everything. Those security cameras I installed saved me so much trouble. Second, don't be afraid to stand up to bullies, even ones with authority. If I just let the cart theft go, Patricia would have kept stealing from people, kept abusing her power. Third, community matters. The neighborhood came together once Patricia was gone, and we were all better for it. I still live in Meadowbrook Heights. I'm still on the HOA board, actually serving as treasurer now. We've implemented new rules about HOA governance, including term limits for the president, regular audits, and a requirement that all board meetings be recorded and made available to residents. We're determined that what happened with Patricia never happens again. My firewood cart is still going strong, though I did add my name in larger letters on the side, just to be safe. It's become something of a neighborhood legend. New residents often ask about it, and the story gets retold with various embellishments. I've heard versions where I chased Patricia down the street, versions where the cart was worth $10,000, and one particularly creative version where Patricia was running an international stolen goods ring. The truth was dramatic enough, though. The fingerprints were what clinched it. Without that physical evidence tying Patricia directly to the theft, it would have been my word against hers, the respected HOA president. The fact that her prints were in the system from that Arizona arrest was the crucial element that made everything else fall into place. It proved both that she'd handled my cart and that she had a history of similar behavior. I think about that sometimes. How one decision, one impulse to steal a cart, unraveled an entire life. Patricia had a nice house, a position of authority, the respect of at least some neighbors. She threw it all away for items she didn't need and could easily afford to buy. The theft wasn't about money or necessity. It was about power and control and getting away with something. In the end, she didn't get away with it. The evidence was too clear, the fingerprints too damning. Justice was served, though it took months and caused a lot of stress for a lot of people. But the neighborhood survived, adapted, and came out stronger. As for me, I'm more careful about my property now. Everything valuable gets locked up and my security cameras are always running. But I'm not paranoid. I'm just realistic. Most people are good. Most neighbors are trustworthy. But there are always a few who think the rules don't apply to them, who think their position or status gives them the right to take what isn't theirs. Those people need to be stopped. They need to be held accountable. And they need to learn that actions have consequences, that fingerprints can match a police database, and that even a simple stolen firewood cart can bring down an empire built on intimidation and abuse of power. Life goes on in Boulder. The seasons change, the snow comes and goes, and I keep stacking firewood with my recovered cart. Every time I use it, I'm reminded that standing up for yourself matters, that justice can prevail, and that sometimes the smallest things can trigger the biggest changes. My custom-built cart, with its red paint and pneumatic wheels and welded initials, became the catalyst for fixing a broken system and removing a corrupt leader. And really, that's worth more than any cart, no matter how well built.